Okay, so in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how to get started with outsourcing or how to improve what you're already outsourcing and maybe overcome some of those myths and mysteries and mistakes that people make when they are actually outsourcing their work and what actually outsourcing your work means in general. We're going to be covering all of that in this episode. So stay tuned and take away some great tips of how to improve your outsourcing or just get started if that's you. Okay, so this is a topic which just seems to come up time and time again. It's like, how do I actually get other people to do my work for me? And there's some barriers I think that people have that I see pop up in our Facebook group and in our community and also in a lot of the coaching sessions that I have. And people have this idea that in order to outsource something, and we're going to use the case study of outsourcing your social media as the example, because it's a really good one that most people can relate to. And if you are trying to outsource your social media and you can just replace social media with whatever it is you're trying to do, client onboarding, maybe it's your sales progression, maybe it's your some other part of your business, whatever it is, you can slot that into the blank. But we're going to focus on the social media just to have something, a story to talk about and to give some context. So say you're going to outsource your social media, and I used to think that to do this, I had to have some big content repurposing machine all planned out, and I had to have all the people lined up, and I had to have a copywriter and a scheduler or a manager, and I needed a graphic designer, and I needed all these different people all lined up and ready to go before I could start doing anything. And what happened, because I had that mindset, because I believed I had to get it all done or all outsourced to be able to make it effective, was that I never really got anywhere. I couldn't afford to hire an agency to do this for me, a professional agency based, in the UK or in the USA or whatever. And I couldn't see how I could get help getting, a collection of more affordable, say, virtual assistants to help me with this and coordinate it all together, because I didn't have that expertise myself and I was struggling, with time anyway. So finding the time to do this as well was never going to happen. It was just adding work to my existing heavy workload, and therefore it just didn't really happen. So I ended up thinking it's quicker, easier, and cheaper just to do it all myself, and that's what I did. So I spent many, many hours posting and writing content and repurposing it and putting it out there and getting into groups and all the rest of it, all the stuff that people tell you need to do. And I don't disagree that stuff is good, but it is very time consuming. And so I didn't, just to really qualify this, I didn't suddenly get loads of money and decide to hire an agency and hands off and see you later. I did actually try that approach, but didn't actually find it was very effective. It was very expensive, and it still ended up taking me time. We didn't really get the results I was hoping for. But what I did do is to slowly build up a consistent and meaningful and directed approach to my social media posting. And this meant that over the course of a few months, I slowly built up the number of posts we were doing with the help of just a general assistant. And all I did was to look at, okay, what am I currently doing right now? So what was at the time? I was doing things like maybe I was posting some quotes. I was maybe just saying a bit about what I'm doing this week. Then I'd come up with some sort of help or solution to a problem that I'd encountered and solved maybe for one of my clients, and that would go into more of a tutorial post. And those are sorts of things that I was trying to get done regularly. And I was doing them, sporadically. They weren't very consistent. But I definitely had some track record with that. And most people, when you're trying to outsource social media, you're at least having a go at it yourself. So rather than me trying to think, okay, how can I do more? I just decided to say, okay, how do I do less myself, but keep the same amount going out? And I slowly replaced myself, what I was currently doing, with somebody else doing all the hard work for me. And it was a slow process. I chose one thing. So first of all, we did the easy ones. So post a quote on my timeline or on my LinkedIn or on my page or whatever. Post something that just or inspirational quote or something generic. Some helpful bit that I've said in the past. Grab it from something I've said. Just post it somewhere. And if we could do that, then that's one post a week taken care of. And then we added basically promoting our podcast was the next thing I actually did. And this was the game changer for me. And I'm actually going to cycle back to a second, because this is the one that really turned, me doing loads and loads of content creation into me as a company doing loads of content promotion. And this is something that I think I got wrong in the beginning. I believed that in order to be prolific in social media, in order to get out there and share my message and help as many people as possible, I needed to produce lots and lots of unique, massively helpful, insightful content. And that's draining and time consuming. But what I've realized over the years is that to produce lots of useful posts and useful content for people to absorb and people to take in, what I need to do is to produce one good piece of content and then put most of my efforts and most of my money behind promoting that piece of content. So this recording that I'm making right now, and I'm actually making this as a live stream into my Facebook events. If you're listening to this on the podcast, I actually do a lot of my podcast recording as a live stream into my Facebook group a couple of weeks ahead. So if you want to get a bit of a sneak preview of what's coming into the podcast, then jump in my Facebook groups, Systems and Outsourcing Community. And this isn't a pitch for that, by the way. This is just telling you what I'm doing because this is part of the process. So in doing this, I have automatically created a live stream video post into my community. So I've created one piece of content simply by doing this. So nothing new, no more work for me. And now what I'm going to do, or what happens now, is that I record this at the same time. So I've got really good quality recording. So there's streaming into the group and I'm recording this onto my hard drive at the same time. And that's then shared with my assistant, who then takes that and shares that with my podcast agency. Between the podcast agency and my assistant, we create show notes, we create snippets, bits of video, we create posts to promote the actual episode, to give people a teaser post, to give people information about the actual post when it goes live. We promote the YouTube episode, we put that onto our website as well, and then we promote the blog post that we create off the back of the content that I'm recording right now. This is a content piece about how to create content pieces and how to get started with outsourcing your social media or outsourcing anything and doing it bit by bit. This is a content piece, so I can create a blog post out of this. And so me recording one piece of content, a lot of people call this the pillar post or the pillar piece of content. So you create one piece of content, or I think Russell Brunson calls it the master show. So you're recording one piece of content, or that may be a collection of pieces of content all around one subject. So you only have to think about it once and plan it once. And then you just record, I'm recording a video. I'm also recording an audio here. I've also made some notes and we're going to do some posts in the near future based on the content that I'm talking about now. And so by me doing that one thing, I can then get that split up and broken out. And we will do, I know, at minimum 15 posts over the next, when this goes live in a few weeks' time. This will be at least 15 posts across social media. And that will go up. Obviously, we have more channels to our social media account. That will then go up significantly. So me doing one little video now for 10, 15 minutes or whatever a week, I can produce 15 pieces of content with very little input. And we didn't get to 15 overnight. And just going back to what I was saying before, I originally recorded this not live. I recorded my episodes on video, and then I would send that, and then we'd send that to the agency, to the podcast agency, and then put them on that, and then we'd promote them with a post. So originally I got one piece of content, one post, which was me saying, hey, I've just done a podcast, sharing that with my Facebook group. So maybe I get three. I get one on my page, one on my profile, and one on my Facebook group. So one podcast would equal 3 pieces of content on social media. So I didn't overnight go, hey, now let's have 15. And what I did was I slowly changed what we were doing and slowly brought in an assistant to do more and more of that for me, so I didn't have to do it. And then they came up with actually new ideas. Oh, why don't we do this? Why don't we post it into here? Why don't we post it into here? Blah, blah, blah. And this basically went forward until we got at least 50. I can't remember where the last count is. But every single post I do now gets all that, with me doing absolutely no more effort or more thinking than I did originally. It's just been an incremental, every few weeks or every week or whatever, we'll come up with a new idea. Oh, let's do that. And then the assistant will have a go at doing it and we'll tweak it until we get it right. And then we'll add something else. And that's the way I suggest you go about most of your outsourcing, in that, I talk about freeing your time first. Like we have a whole course, a foundation program, all about freeing your time. And there's a reason for that. The foundation program is about A, learning the skills of how to outsource and delegate and manage effectively, but B, because if you're already snowed under, there's no point in trying to think about new stuff like outsourcing social media. I mean, it's never ending. You can keep on scaling your outsourcing of your social media. It's just advertising, it's marketing. You can keep going with forever. You can have a team of 100 people and you still never ever get to the end of the possibilities of what you could do. But the point is that what you're doing right now is taking up your time. So replace yourself with somebody else doing what you're doing right now. Find a way to minimize your input. So for me, it was to record a single show, which is then passed over. It could be for you, there'll be a key part. Maybe, you have a sales process, a sales pipeline that you have for your company. And at the moment, you're the person doing the sales calls. But that's fine. Just make sure that's the only thing that you do. You pick up the phone, you speak to somebody, but all the chasing up before that, all the follow-up afterwards is either automated or done by somebody else. And therefore, your time is there being utilized at its highest possible value. Same with me. So I'm doing my podcast, I do my recording like now. That is my highest value I can give to this whole process. Everything else has been systematically systemized and then delegated and outsourced to somebody else to do. And this is, once you get this stuff right, people worry about you hire an agency and suddenly you're beholden to that agency forever because, they're the ones that know how to promote you in your business. And if you ever broke up that relationship or you ever, fired them, so to speak, well, that's the end of your promotion. You've got to start from scratch. Doing it the way I've done it is maybe not as quick, maybe, not as effective in the early stages, that you've got to build up to it and it takes a little bit of time to get that momentum going. But actually, what I built is a system for promoting my podcast, which I own. And it doesn't matter who does that. So, for example, Von built the system. She was the one that worked with me originally. And now we've had another assistant called Judy who's come in and took over the entire production or entire promotion of our podcast seamlessly with almost no help from anybody because we've systemized and documented everything what we do. And that's, what we teach on our courses about how you do that, how you create systems for everything you do. But that's the power of this now. I own that IP. I own that intellectual property about how to promote my podcast or anyone's podcast for that matter. And just to prove this actually works. So in our first year, we hit almost 10,000 downloads in 61 different countries. And I'm pretty proud of that because we haven't really done much behind it. It's just been this consistent approach to posting about our podcast on social media, about generating other snippets, about directing people, back to our podcast page, etc., just to get them to actually subscribe to the podcast. It's really simple stuff, but it's been done consistently. And the reason it's been done consistently is because I haven't done it. Because if I'd been doing it, I would have got distracted. I would have said, this week I just haven't got time to do it, so it won't be done. Because I'm not doing it because someone else is, therefore it gets done every single week. So my big take home for this and my big advice is to start small. Start with something you're already doing and try to break it down into the smallest pieces you possibly can and remove yourself bit by bit from every single part of that process and just keep hold of the one thing, the highest value input you can have on that whole process in order to, keep that going forward, in order to keep the production of whatever it is that you're doing. Like I was saying, it could be sales calls, it could be onboarding clients, it could be a call you need to have with them. It could be, for my example here, recording a podcast. I've got to record the podcast, well, until the AI technology really catches up, but I've got to record the podcast so it's my voice and I'm actually the one, coming up with the ideas. But except for that, I shouldn't be doing and don't do any other part of the promotion of the whole of the podcast or that particular, for that episode or for any episode for that matter. So that's it. I'm going to call that a day. I hope that's been helpful. If it has been helpful, if you found this useful, please do hit subscribe. Please leave me a review, rate this podcast. It really does mean a lot to me for a start, but it also really helps to actually reach a wider audience by pushing us up the charts and getting the podcast and the knowledge I try to share in front of more people. So do me a favor, do people a favor, and do everyone a favor, and please hit rate and leave me a quick review. I massively appreciate it, and so will everybody else who gets to listen to this because of your kind efforts. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you next time.